Haven't had a chance to chat with Dale Matthews for a few days over at badcounty.com, so it's time to circle around and find out, okay, what's happening there now? Dale, welcome back to the show. Morning.
Thank you for inviting me, sir.
So, Dale, this has been a bone of contention for a long, long time, and it has to do with the way that that government agencies, I know that when it comes to open meetings laws in Jackson County, they take things pretty darn seriously. They're always, I'm just going to give you an example with the county commission here, with Danny Jordan keeping pretty tight rein on the schedules. And when I say tight rein, I'm not saying he's cracking the whip, but all the county commissioners are always having to converse with one another. Where are you going to be? Are you going to be at this meeting? Okay, all right, well, I can't be there. All right, well, I can't go over here because you're going to be on this show, so we can't be there too because it would be a quorum and all this kind of stuff. They bend over backwards to avoid violating the Oregon open meetings law. Now, it's been a little more relaxed over in Josephine County, as we've talked with you several times about this over the years. So what is the latest development?
Well, if you agree with me that commissioners standing in a parking lot, having a short conversation, and then taking a vote doesn't sound like a good idea with no one around, then you'll greet this as good news.
Okay, now hold on, before we go to the good news. So, what, have you caught commissioners just talking about business in a parking lot and then taking a vote right there?
Yes, and we also have a source inside. We do now because we're getting much bigger and more popular. We have a source inside the commissioner's office that routinely tells us when they stop into each other's office and have a little conversation and decide on things. They took an oath. That's breaking the law. And as Keith Eck pointed out, he said this 3 times, I know we're breaking the law, and I don't care.
I remember that. I know we're breaking the law and we don't care. I recall that quote here. So county council, though, is attempting or has reined them in, or at least reined this behavior. What's Wally Hicks up to with this?
Well, he officially warned them. He put it in writing. It's always been in writing. It's part of the state law. Sure. They swore to uphold this law. He put it in writing on county letterhead and slid it across the table to them during an official meeting that we taped. And they said, well, no, we can still do that. No.
Okay, all right.
We didn't take a vote.
All right, no? Take us through this then.
Right.
What did Wally Hicks tell them then, and what did they say? Well, could we take a vote in the parking lot? I imagine there was a bit of an exchange going on here.
There was. Now, they've always heard this, and we can all read English, and we can go look at the law for ourselves. They don't want to obey this law, but it says, basically, you are not allowed to do what you and I just talked about. And so he gave them this piece of paper, and they now are holding it in their hands. And it says a number of different things, like you can do this and you can't do this. The most important thing, the trump card, is the following phrase, and everybody's going to want to know this if you're interested in watching over your government. Okay. Maybe you're not. That's okay. Go garden your tomatoes. But this says...
you better pay attention to the government because the government wants to control how you garden your tomatoes, too. So
they do, yes. This sentence, and this is where he stopped them cold, and they had no more arguments. They just look very angry. And it says, the meeting must be public with all the things that entails, and tell the people and invite them and all that. If 2 or more commissioners, a quorum, merely gather information, you're awake and listening, upon which a decision might be based. That's it. End of story. Yeah, but we didn't make a decision. Okay, it might be based. Oh, but we weren't sitting next to each other. It doesn't matter. Oh, well, we didn't take a vote. It doesn't matter. If you're sitting in a meeting or any place and county business is discussed, not if tomatoes are being discussed, but unless that's county business.
So let's say if you had Keith Heck and Cheryl Walker get together and say, all right, we're going to go out and 4-H is having a special event, and we're going to go out there and garden together on premises there, and they're just sitting out there helping the kids and they're gardening and they're saying, hi, isn't this a great day? That's okay under the open meetings law, right?
Yeah, or one of the commissioners can go to a meeting and take off her shoe and pound the podium with it. And extol the virtues of things and dance around the room in an interpretive dance saying why it's a great idea to vote for this. No problem.
I would love to see that, frankly. I think that would help Cheryl Walker's reelection possibilities if she were to go out there and do an interpretive dance. It would be good.
With a certain kind of person, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's simple. You just send one. That's all. And you check with each other as they do in Jackson County. Be sure that you...
I know in Jackson County, I tell you, they are slavishly devoted to making sure and follow this law, and they're very careful about where they all appear and speak together. And they
took an oath.
Yeah, they make sure that they don't speak together. Right. Unless it's going to be about...
took an oath also.
Yeah.
This didn't used to be a problem because talking with some of the older commissioners that used to be commissioners, they say, we wouldn't even get in an elevator. Really? We didn't want to appear as if we might be discussing something.
Yeah, it's about avoiding the appearance of the good old boy network in which we're just doing everything, all the real discussion. Yeah, there's one thing of what we'll say out in the open public meeting, and then there's the real business being conducted behind doors or in the elevators or the smoke-filled rooms. But I guess there are no smoke-filled rooms now, but maybe they're vaping filled rooms, perhaps.
Well, this back room had smoke because it was pouring out of their ears. They were not happy because we had said this all along. We've been saying this for years, and legal counsel finally stepped forward. Look, here's another...
Hey, I just want to say, though, Dale Matthews, once again, badcounty.com, the non-commercial video website that has the video of this sort of stuff we're talking about. This is good for Wally Hicks. Good for Wally Hicks that he finally set them straight and said, hey, listen, this is what the law says. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Good for him.
It is good for him. And when he first talked about his goals, Cheryl Walker said, well, I don't like that goal. And he said, I'm an elected official. This is not an editing session. I'm telling you what my goals are.
All right, so Wally is reining them in, or at least warning them that they're violating this. So let's revisit badcounty.com history. Let's go back a couple of years. Was it 2 years ago? Remember when the county commissioners appeared at a Rotary meeting? And they were members of the Rotary, correct? And were they not giving a speech on the state of the county?
And we were invited.
And
all the public was invited. They noticed it as a meeting where there'd be at least two commissioners. We had been there every year videotaping the state of the county report. It's usually kind of boring, but it's, okay, let's
But still, this is county business we're talking about here.
Oh, absolutely. It's the state of the county report. And
now, it was being held at the Wild River over in Grants Pass. I remember that.
That's correct. Yeah.
And
Cheryl Walker was the presenter.
Okay.
And Keith Eck was in the audience. And she looked over and she saw us there, and she says, I don't want these people here. And so the owner of Wild River came over and said, you're going to have to leave. She doesn't want you here. And I said, look, I understand. I totally understand. You can not serve us because no shoes, no shirt, no service. Whatever reason you want, you can do. I said, but this is state law. And so, sorry, sir, but all this is on tape. You could see it. I must respectfully decline to leave because that way you will be enforcing the idea that would be breaking state law. And I have to at least, please understand, I'm not trying to be rude to you, but I have to at least say, I have to counter that. And so they called the police.
And so the police came and they asked you to leave the Wild River out there. And so effectively what they were trying to say, though, is that unfortunately, once you had the county commissioners there appearing and they were discussing county business then, that private Rotary meeting, supposedly, was transformed by state law into a public meeting, whether they like to admit it or not.
Yeah, right? And we were also invited. All the public was invited. And afterwards, the bottom line was Cheryl Walker never regretted this. But the other two commissioners said, we probably shouldn't have done it that way.
Yeah. Now, what would Wally Hicks be able to weigh in on this? Perhaps kind of a forensic, using forensic law enforcement, as it were? Because I would really be curious to find out from Wally Hicks himself what the story is, because that looked to me like a violation of open meetings law, and we talked about it back then.
Yeah, it definitely was. No, Wally's not going to go backwards on this. He's a good guy that's becoming better, but he's enough of a politician to realize that's not going to benefit him.
There's no point in smacking their noses after the fact. Okay.
Well, they've declared what they think about it. At least Cheryl has. She never apologized. She was president of Rotary just following that. They elected her president.
Now, did all three, by the way, going back to that meeting, I know we're rehashing a little bit of history, but I want to make sure that I understand correctly, because I am going to ask Wally about this. I'm going to email him. All right. So, but we're all three speaking.
No. And what Wally
maybe that's
to them.
Well, maybe that's what they were. Maybe that's what they got you on, though.
No, they don't. Wally made clear then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if any of you speak. It doesn't matter whether you're sitting next to each other. Remember the phrase. Mm-hmm. If you're gathering information, which means you're awake.
Even though they're not all three speaking, that's still violations, and they have to avoid this, right?
It is. And so it's simple. Just send one. I mean, that's the world's simplest thing. Just send one. That's what they used to do.
Okay, well, that's what they do in Jackson County. I know that.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
And here's another practical example, and this involves money. So Simon Hare wasn't sure. In fact, he said he didn't want to give any more money to a certain organization. And so that certain organization had a meeting where they were going to wine him and dine him and then also do a presentation. And Keith Heck and Cheryl Walker said, I love this organization. We're going to give them money. And Simon Hare says, no, I don't think so. I don't see any benefit in giving them money. And so, but he went. He says, a little bit reluctantly to this meeting, but he went. And while he was at the meeting, which he later characterized as just a social gathering, they made the presentation, they fed him, they gave him something to drink, and then when he left, he said, that convinced me, and so I'm going to vote for it.
But you see, that's what you're trying to avoid here with the wining and dining and the appearance of an undue influence, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like county council is trying to, I guess there's a new sheriff in town. Well, there is a new sheriff in town, but there's also a new sheriff in the county commission, I suppose. So the reaction from the three commissioners not very positive about
Oh, boy, were they unhappy. And here's probably what's going to happen. I mean, to be realistic about it, for about 3 weeks, the commissioners are going to clean up their act.
Okay.
And then they're going to revert back to, this is a lifetime habit. They're going to revert back to the back room, meeting in their office. Look, this just happened. They had a land use hearing. Now, land use hearing is a big deal because LUBA, the Land Use Board of Appeals, they have power. I mean, they can actually stop things from happening.
Some of the biggest bones of contention we have are property issues here in Southern Oregon.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Keith Heck, during the land use hearing, he says, and nobody knows why he said this. He said, oh, by the way, I was reading up on this case. Hey, never stop Keith Heck from reading something, please. And he says, and then another commissioner stopped in my office and asked me why I was bothering to read this, and so I stopped. What? So he said in public that another commissioner came in and convinced him to stop.
Okay, so here's the thing, though. Are there such serious lines of demarcation that you couldn't even have a commissioner just drop by and say hello in another commissioner's meeting? I mean, really?
No, come on now. They can say hello, but they can't say hello, I want you to vote for this.
Okay, all right.
They can't say hello, let's talk about county business.
Uh-huh. All right.
That's all.
Can they send the emails back and forth to one another and discuss county business?
That's a good question. Why is the state of Oregon now super sensitive about emails? Don't forget what Cheryl Walker said. You can't look at my emails. Well, why not? Because there's personal information in there, and there isn't enough hours in the day, and never will be.
Well, Cheryl Walker was using the Hillary Clinton excuses. All right, yes. That's what she was doing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And you'll never get a chance because there's not enough hours in the day to investigate me.
Now, don't they have their own email accounts with the county? Why don't they just conduct all the business through that?
Well, they do.
All right. Well, then what's the problem with looking at those?
This is against the law. Lane County got sued, and they lost $350,000, and two commissioners were fined $20,000 apiece, I think it was, because they were deciding, they were sharing information and deciding online in emails back and forth.
Okay, so they have to watch that too. So
yes,
the open meetings law is very clear. Debate and conversation on public matters must be held in public where the public are able to see what's going on.
That answers the question that Mark Goins, the pastor here at that church, when he said that if you don't obey authority, you're like a Satan worshiper. He did say that. We have it on tape and witnesses.
I know.
If you accept that fact on it, by itself, then that means our founding fathers were Satan. No, they weren't. Come on, because they were rebelling against authority. But if you accept the fact in America that we are the authorities, we're supposed to be the bosses, then all of that makes sense. And since we're the bosses, our hired employees, temporary employees, definitely in this case, they they must conduct their business in open in front of us. That's all.
Interesting that you brought that up because hired help, because I've used this term for government officials, even though I'm respectful of the office, but I try to remind folks that, listen, they are elected, but yet you effectively hire them. They are hired help. They're hired to do a particular job, and as such, you have the right, if not, dare I say, the duty to oversee what's going on. And you can't if they're able to conduct all this in smoke-filled rooms or behind the scenes, which is why Oregon has this open meetings law. However, the open meetings law does not seem to be very enforced by the state government. That's a challenge you're facing, right?
Yeah. All we can do now, all we have is a court of public opinion, honestly.
Okay. All right. But at least Wally Hicks, one of the good guys on the record here, saying, hey, you guys, knock it off, right?
They weren't happy.
Mm-hmm. I'll be curious to see if they are going to be upholding the law that they swore to take an oath to uphold. So if they're going to obey it. All right. Badcounty.com. Great site. Take a look at these videos that Dale and I are talking about, these various issues. You can take a look at it yourself. And, of course, you end up having a news conversation every evening, you and Mike at 7 o'clock, right?
We do, and we analyze it, and we play back tapes, and we talk about them, and we laugh.
All right. Well, tell me if there's any pushback over these coming days against the open meetings law. And if Wally Hicks is telling him, Wally Hicks is a good guy, smart lawyer, I'm sure that he's figured this out pretty clearly.
Since we have a source inside their offices, we'll know.
All right. Very good, Dale. Thanks for being on the show. Good to hear from you again.
Goodbye, sir.
Be well. It's Dale Matthews in Bad County.